Hey guys, it's Luke Yon, and today I'm going to be doing my second reading wrap-up for 2025. So I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in March and April. I know this is very late, but I got back from school and then I just could never find a right date to film this until now, so please bear with me. But I read a ton of books in these months. And I'm actually going to do a little bit of a different format. Instead of just going through the books in the order in which I read them, I'm going to talk about school books first, and then I'll talk about the books that I read for pleasure, so that you can skip around if you don't care about my school books. So the first book that I read in March was a school book, and that was Betrayal by Franz Kafka. This is for my great novels class, and it follows a man named Joseph K. who is randomly arrested one morning, and he has no idea why, and he is put on a trial for, again, reasons he does not know, or you know what I mean. And it's sort of just an absurdist, surreal novel. I liked it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's a solid classic. It's not one of my favorites, but I can definitely see why people enjoy it, and I can also see why people hate it. So I'm kind of right there in the middle. I liked aspects and I disliked some other aspects. So I'm actually going to talk about all of the books that I read for that great novels class. So I read 2 more in these months. The next one was 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it follows the Buendia family. It's very hard to describe, but it's sort of like a magical realism novel. It is set in a fictional town called Macondo in Colombia, and it follows the Buendia family throughout 100 years, and you bounce around a lot of different characters. It is a little bit confusing, so I was happy to have read it in the way that I did. With my class, our professor made us take notes while we were reading. We wrote down every new character that was mentioned in each chapter and then did a summary of each chapter after we finished it. So that was really helpful to just keep track of all of the plot points because things are very fast moving. You'll go through 12 years in a single chapter and meet 6 different characters. So there's a lot of things to keep track of, but I really enjoyed the book overall. It wasn't my favorite book of all time, but I do plan on rereading it because I think now that I know the plot and I know the characters, it'll be even more enjoyable to return to it in the future. Okay, actually, I read 4 books in March and April for this class. So the third one was Severance by Ling Ma, which is a pretty recent novel. I mean, it came out in 2018, but it is a post-apocalyptic story that follows a woman named Candace who was born in China, but she moved with her family to America. Well, her parents moved here first and then she joined them after, but this takes place in 2 timelines. So there's the before section, before the apocalypse, where Candace is working at this company called Spectra, and she works in the Bible division. It's a little bit confusing, but it makes sense when you read the book. And then there's the after section where she is with a bunch of different people who have survived the apocalypse, and they do these mercy kills for people that have been afflicted with Shen fever, which essentially just turns people into zombies. And it's a whole commentary on we're zombies regardless of if there's an apocalypse because we just do the same thing every single day with all these routines. So I liked this book a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was probably the most enjoyable book out of the 6 that I read for this class. We read Emma by Jane Austen, which I talked about in my last wrap-up, and I love that book a lot, but it's not a super enjoyable read all the time just because of the more difficult language. And then 100 Years of Solitude I also gave 4 out of 5 stars, but again, it was a little bit of a labor of love. This one was just really quick and easy and fun to read. It has a lot of deep messages and intriguing themes, and I would recommend it to pretty much anyone. And then the last book that we read for this class, I'm so thankful I did not have to write an essay on this book, because it was No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, which I gave 1 out of 5 stars. 1 star out of 5. Yeah, I hated this book, and I don't even know how to describe it. It is it's so weird. It is so incredibly strange and odd and perplexing. And it follows a main character. I don't even remember if she has a name, but the first half of the book is her just like talking about the internet in these random like stanzas, and then the second half of the book is like her sister has a baby who is differently abled, and I don't know, I friggin' hated this book. Like, I actually hated it. It was so bad. Like, the first half was like meh, like 2 stars, but I hated the last half so much. And yeah, no one is talking about this is a book I never want to talk about again. So, 1 star. Okay, now moving into the other books that I read for school. These were for my Shakespeare class. And continuing on the 1-star trend, the first book that I read in March and April for the Shakespeare class was Fat Ham by some guy whose name I don't remember. And this is like a modern play that is inspired by Hamlet. Yeah, also give this 1 out of 5 stars. I hated it. Like, I don't know if I disliked this more than No One Is Talking About This, or if I disliked just No One Is Talking About This more than Fat Ham, but yeah, I just hated it. And basically the day that we talked about this play, I essentially just didn't participate at all because I hated it and I didn't want to offend my professor. So yeah, it was terrible. Like, I just thought it was so weird, so vulgar. It was all over the place, and it felt like the author didn't understand Hamlet whatsoever. So, moving on. Getting into the actual Shakespeare plays, the first one I'm going to talk about is Romeo and Juliet. I gave this like 3 or 4 out of 5 stars. I think 4. I enjoyed it. I wrote my final essay on it, but I'm sure you don't need an explanation on what this book is about, or this play. Then we also read Othello, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars as well. Macbeth we read, which was a reread for me. I think I gave that 4 out of 5 stars as well, 3.5 maybe. And then Antony and Cleopatra was the last one. And this one was good too. It was just pretty long and a little bit tedious to read at times, but I think I gave it 3 stars. So, yeah. Now moving on to the books that I'm sure you all care about a little bit more. The first book that I read, like, for pleasure in March was The Song Rising by Samantha Shannon. I talked about how I reread the Bone Season, the Pale Dreamer, and the Mime Order in my last wrap-up, but I was rereading them as the author's preferred text so that I could catch up with the series, read the 4th book, and then read the 5th book, which came out in February. So I really enjoyed The Song Rising. I don't know, it's probably like my least favorite in the series just by default. I still give it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. This installment really focuses on this strange technology, and it's a little bit of like a heist novel that just follows Paige trying to disable this technology that is a big threat to the clairvoyant world. This series is a little bit difficult to describe, but just sort of basics. It follows a main character named Paige Mahoney, who is a clairvoyant, and clairvoyance in this world, it's a futuristic world, takes place in 2060. In like the UK and Europe, clairvoyants have these like supernatural abilities. Paige, for example, is a dream walker, so she can go into people's dreams, and there's a lot of others. There's like mediums and sensors and all these different types of clairvoyance. It's a very intricate world. I really enjoy the world. It's one of my favorites that I've read in like recent years, and Samantha Shannon just has such beautiful writing. I'm so glad I decided to reread the series with the author's preferred text, because also these covers are so beautiful, and yeah, this one was good. It's the shortest book in the series, and it's very, very fast-paced, but I still enjoyed it a whole lot. Then I read The Dawn Chorus, which is a novella that takes place in between books 3 and 4. Enjoyed this one as well. It's pretty slow, and it's sort of just, again, a bridge between those 2 installments, but it was still good. This was also a reread, so. But then I picked up The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon, the 4th book. This one takes place in Paris. I loved it. It was a spy thriller, espionage sort of story. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was my favorite book in the series until the 5th book, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, but I just loved it. I thought it was so good. It was so engaging. It was so addicting to read. I read it all really, really quickly, and I think this was a huge turning point in the series, and it's really setting up a great trajectory for the rest of the installments. I just thought the characters were so well developed. I loved the new Parisian setting. I thought there were a lot of new characters, a lot of new plot points that are going to have huge implications for the rest of the story. And yeah, I just loved it so much. Definitely recommend this series. And then I read The Dark Mirror by Samantha Shannon, the 5th and most recent book in the Bone season, which this book is sort of a road trip sort of story. We're uncovering a lot of secrets. There's still some spy aspects in this book as well, but we go to Poland and the Czech Republic and Austria and all throughout Italy. The majority of this book takes place in Italy, which I loved because I speak Italian and I'm going to Italy in June, so there's just a lot of things that I was able to like enjoy in this book, and I loved it. I can't really talk much about it because it is the 5th book in a series, but it is phenomenal, and there's so many like emotional moments in this story. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely adored it. Then I picked up Zikora by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is a short story that follows a woman from Nigeria who's living in America, and she is in the labor and delivery room. She's about to have her first child, and she's sort of reflecting on her life, her family, her relationship, her future as a mother. It's a really poignant story. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I have read Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's nonfiction, like, short books, and this was my first venture into her fiction because I am interested in some of her other books, so this was a good way to, like, put my foot in the water, and I really enjoyed it. I think she's a phenomenal writer. I loved the themes in this story. It's a really, really short story, but it definitely packs a huge punch. Next, I read Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. This is the 2nd book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone last May, and then I read the novella Night of Cake and Puppets last May as well, and I decided to continue on with the series because I was just like in the mood for this type of story, and this series is very difficult to describe as well, but it follows a main character named Karu, who is living in Prague, and she has a very mysterious past, mysterious even to herself. She works for someone named Brimstone, who is a chimera, so he's half man, half, like, animal, and he basically gives her these tasks to do, and in the 1st book there are these strange handprints that are showing up on doors across the world, and they're sort of like portals, and there's an angel world called Eretz, and there's just a huge like melding between Eretz and Earth, and there's like an angel and demon romance between Karu and another character, Akiva, and I definitely cannot say anything about this book because it would spoil like the huge plot twist in the first installment, but I really enjoyed this. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I love Laini Taylor's writing. The Strange the Dreamer series is one of my favorites of all time, and I loved Daughter of Smoke and Bone when I read it last year, so this book picks up right where the 1st book left off. There's a lot of secrets, there's more insight into Eretz, there's a lot of cool mythology. It's just a great series, and I would really recommend it. I think the 1st book is still my favorite, but I gave this one 4 stars as well. Really, really loved it. Then I read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. When I heard about this book last year when it was announced, my heart literally dropped because I love Haymitch so much, and I remember in Catching Fire, the like glimpse we got into his games. I literally could not have been more excited about this book if I tried, even though I really disliked The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I love the original Hunger Games trilogy, and I knew Suzanne Collins would not disappoint me twice. And she did not. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. One of my favorites of the year, no question. It follows Haymitch in the 50th Hunger Games, and it's just so good. Like, literally every time I look at this book, I want to reread it because I devoured it. It was so good. There's so much commentary on propaganda and, like, just narrative and perspective and all of these things. It's so phenomenal. There are twists and turns in this book, which you would not expect because it is a prequel, and you basically know the outcome of everything, but just seeing the road, oh my god, I love Suzanne Collins. Like, I knew she wouldn't disappoint me twice. I knew it. Like, she couldn't. I'm still convinced Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was ghostwritten because there's just no way that is written by the same author as the original series and this book. Honestly, this is probably my favorite book in the entire, like, saga. I think this one is even better than Catching Fire. It is so, like, arena is so fascinating. It's so well described. Like, Susan Collins, honestly, I think upped her writing game 3,000,000%. Like, which, honestly, like, how could you even do that? Even though I disliked A Battle of Songbirds and Snakes, like, she's still such a phenomenal writer, and her plots are like, okay, I need to stop gushing because I'm starting to sound incomprehensible. But I loved this book, and the tagline on the back says it best: when you've been set up to lose everything you love, what is there left to fight for? Oh my god, it's so good. Like, I cannot wait for the movie. I'm literally shaking. Okay, then we have Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor, the third and final book in the Daughter Smoke and Bone trilogy. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. I really cannot talk about this book because it would spoil pretty much everything, but it just deals a lot with the two worlds colliding, and there's so much interesting, cool mythology in this series. I love the way Laini Taylor world builds, and oh my god, it's just so good. They're so, like, this is a huge, like, war story. I loved it. I love this series, and yeah, it's one series that I would honestly consider, like, rereading, even though, like, I rarely reread series that are not, like, 5-star series, and this is not a 5-star series, but there's just so many things that I love in it. There's so many cool aspects that I would definitely consider revisiting it in the future. But yeah, I'm super happy because I had initially, like, unhauled the first book, and then I got, like, the new box set when I read the first book last year, so I'm happy I decided to pick it up because it is definitely, like, an all-time series for me. Then we have 1,000 Nights by E.K. Johnston. This is a YA fantasy story that follows an unnamed character, and she lives in a village, and there is this guy named Lo Melkin who takes one girl every single night back to his palace, and she is dead by morning. So it is a Arabian Nights retelling, and the main character ends up volunteering herself to go with Lo Melkin to save her sister, and she ends up in his palace learning a ton of things about the court and herself, her world, her magic. It is an amazing story. Oh, and also obviously she, like, tells him stories so that she can survive. It is a great story. Like, I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I was a little bit nervous that it would be too much like The Wrath and the Dawn by Athia, which is a series I really enjoy. But I thought this was a great retelling of that original myth, and they are very different. Like, apart from the original setup, which is pretty similar, the actual stories are quite different. And I think E.K. Johnston this is the first book I've read by her, and I love her writing style. It's so lush, so descriptive, and I just think the prose is beautiful. And it was such an interesting story, as I said, because the main character is unnamed, like, even by the end of the story, or end of the book. So it was really cool, really creative, a great retelling, and I can't wait to read the next book in the series, which is, like, a spin-off that is a retelling. It takes place, like, far in the future, and it retells Sleeping Beauty. So excited for that. So I would definitely recommend this. It's pretty underrated, and also the cover is beautiful, and Under the Dust Jacket is great. It's definitely a very, very solid read. Then I picked up The Garden of 300 Flowers by E.K. Johnston, which is a novella that takes place after 1,000 Nights. I can't really talk about this because it would spoil the end of 1,000 Nights, but I really enjoyed this. It was actually a very, very solid novella. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. Yeah, definitely a good one, not just like a cash grab. Okay, and the last book that I'm going to talk about in this wrap-up is Save the Date by Morgan Matson. This is a YA contemporary book, which I haven't read in a while. Like, I'm looking at my YA contemporary shelf on my bookcase, and, like, most of those books I read, like, years ago. So it was nice to return to this genre. I really love Morgan Matson. I read another one of her books in May, which I'll talk about in my next wrap-up. But I think this is the third book that I have read from her. I haven't read her first 2 books, so I definitely want to go back and do that. And she's had a few since this. Anyway, and this book follows a main character named Charlie, who is the youngest of 5 siblings. Her family is the Grant family, and her mother is actually a cartoonist. She has this panel called Grand Central Station, which I actually have. There's a little bit of like snippets of them throughout the book, like interspersed, and this book takes place over a week. Linus! My cat is like going crazy for some reason. He definitely just wants attention, but anyway, this book takes place over 3 days in April, and Charlie is a senior in high school, so she's trying to decide where she wants to go to college, and her parents are also going to be selling their house very soon. So she has a lot going on, and she has been looking forward to this wedding for a while. It is her older sister who is getting married, so she is happy that her family will finally be together once again. One of her brothers has not been involved in like family occasions for a little while because of something that happened, which we find out about a little bit later, so I don't want to spoil it. But basically, this is like a long way of just saying that Charlie is eager for this wedding to happen, but the one problem is that everything goes wrong in this wedding. Like, everything that could go wrong at this wedding goes wrong, and the book sort of just follows this main character, Charlie, as she is trying to put out all these fires that are going off around her. It was a really good story. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. It's weirdly like difficult to describe, even though it's like just kind of like a YA contemporary book that takes place during a wedding. But there's a lot of things going on. Like, Charlie has this like very interesting internal struggle. I know a lot of people like didn't really like her because she's a little bit immature, but I don't know, I thought it was realistic. Like, she kind of reminds me of Laura Jean. Oh my god, my cat is literally like, he wants me to finish filming this video so that I can go pet him. But anyway, this book, or Charlie kind of reminds me a little bit of Laura Jean from the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series, who people also did not like her, but I find her really interesting and like realistic. Like, you're a senior in high school, you're not going to be the most mature human being on earth. So, yeah, I thought Charlie was a fine main character, and I related to some aspects of her struggle, like wanting to stay in the past and just wanting things to be the same and wanting things to remain nostalgic forever. So yeah, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely a solid Morgan Matson book, and I'm very happy I read it because it reignited my enjoyment for contemporary books. So, always appreciate that. Oh, also, I have the hardcover. There is, under the dust jacket, or like on the inside of the dust jacket, there's like a little thing of Grand Central Station. So, it's very cool. And there's also a cute dog in the book. So, also I love wedding set things. I just find them really interesting. Okay, so those are all of the books that I read in March and April. Let me know if you liked this format better. I mean, I'm not going to be talking about school books for like probably a while until like the fall, so let me know if you like this change up. I really liked it, so I'll probably keep it regardless, but that is it for this video. I really hope you all enjoyed. I would love to know what books you read in March and April and any of your thoughts on the books that I talked about in this video. All of my social media links are in the description box below, and I'll see you soon for a new video. Bye!